Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Listener discretion is advised. She's a former Invicta FC Bantamweight Champion and currently competes in the women's flyweight division in the UFC. She's ranked number 7 in that division. She's one of the most entertaining fighters that the UFC has to offer right now, with unmatched work ethic and durability. Her pathway to MMA is as unconventional as any. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got lucky Lauren Murphy joining me on the podcast today. She's been training with my friends in Colorado. I've been wanting to talk to her for quite some time, and I'm glad we finally got to make this happen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. Ladies and gentlemen, I am blessed with the presence of the toughest woman in MMA as far as I'm concerned, and the toughest person from Alaska that I've ever met. Actually, I think you might be the only person from Alaska that I ever met. But lucky Lauren Murphy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm really well, thank you.
Thanks for doing the show. It's been a long time coming. I have been a fan of yours for a while. I just recently had Sean Madden on the show, and we had nothing but great things to say about you and your fight career. Why don't you introduce yourself, and let's kind of start talking through your origin story.
Well, my name's Lauren Murphy. I am from Alaska. I was born and raised there. When I was 26, my son was 8. So I really wanted him to be involved in martial arts and kind of get all the benefits that you get from any martial art. You're going to build confidence and make friends and learn some discipline and, hopefully get in shape and have some fitness. The benefits are just amazing. And so I took him to a Gracie Baja, which I had no idea what a Gracie Baja was or what they did. And the woman there was like, I was like, well, what is this? And she was like, well, it's like submission wrestling. It's on the ground, And I was like, I don't really know about that. I was like, I don't think I'm into it. And I was like, I want to learn how to fight, anyway, I was like, I want my kid to learn how to fight. I guess that's a little Freudian slip. I did want to learn how to fight, though. And she was like, most fights end up on the ground. And I thought about that. And I thought about all the fights I'd seen on YouTube and like high school and shit like that. And I was like, damn, she's right. Like most people do kind of clinch up and fall over and then nobody knows what to do. And so I was like, well, we'll give it a shot. And so I took Maxon and I took a class. And I just remember thinking like, dude, if I do this, I'm 26, like I'm too old to like go anywhere or be anything, but at least a year from now, I won't like wish that I had started a year ago. And so I took the first class and like, I just loved it. It was so different than anything I'd ever done. And people kept telling me, they were like, you're so strong, like you're a natural. They were like, you're going to be really good. I had some instructors that were super kind. And I just didn't really have any idea what was happening, but I knew that I liked it. And so I kept going, and there was a fight team there at that gym. And this is a fight team in Alaska. So it's not like, they're not like world renowned. You know what I'm saying? It was like some local fighters in Alaska. And to me, they were just the biggest, baddest motherfuckers I'd ever laid eyes on. I was like in awe of them. And the idea of being in a fist fight terrified me. Like the idea of violence was really quite scary to me. And I didn't like that because I felt like that meant people could pick on me. And sometimes people did, I felt really vulnerable. I didn't like it, that I didn't feel like I wouldn't know what to do if somebody tried to physically confront me. And so basically I just wanted to know, like, if I could do it. I was like, I wonder if I could get into a fist fight. Like, I wonder if I could keep my calm, and I wonder if I could like get into a fist fight and have that aggression and be like that. Like, I wonder if I could be that tough. And that's why I took my first fight, because I just wanted to try it. Really, I've been training for like, I don't know, 4 months or something like that, or 5 months. And, you don't know anything. And so anyway, that was how I ended up taking my first fight. And that's really the whole reason I got involved in it, was because I just wanted to know if I could do it.
Yeah. And you have done it.
Yeah.
That is amazing. The one part that I love, just kind of breaking down everything you just told us, within a 6-month window, you went from taking your kid to a jiu-jitsu class to taking your first amateur fight.
Oh, no, it wasn't amateur.
It was pro, or it was pro fight. Yeah. So that's insane.
Women weren't allowed in the UFC.
Right.
I didn't even watch the UFC. I definitely did not start this like because I wanted to go somewhere with it. I wasn't planning on making this a career. There was absolute, forget fucking money, but there wasn't even any respect in it. Like,
right.
It was like, there was nothing, you know. I literally just wanted to know if I could do it. And in Alaska at the time, we didn't even have an amateur league. And so all the fights were 5-minute rounds, and they were just reported to Sure Dog as a pro fight. And for me, because I didn't care, I was like, I didn't even know what amateur was, to be honest with you. I was like several fights into my pro career before I even learned that there was such a thing as like an amateur. And then I didn't understand why you would do that. I was like, why the fuck would anybody fight and not get paid? I was like, that is so dumb. I thought it was so stupid. You know, I just had no idea that that's like, you know, eventually, like, I mean, we're talking, I had been fighting for like 4 years, and somebody like sat me down and they were like, listen, this is what an amateur career is for. And I just had no idea. It never occurred to me that I would want to practice before becoming a professional, you know, because I just wasn't planning on going anywhere with it. I was going to do one fight and just be done, you know?
Wow. That's amazing. So what brought you to the lower 48? Did you continue training in Alaska as you like made your way into Invicta and the UFC, or did you move down to the lower 48 and then kind of work your contract that way?
So I lived in Alaska and I met Joe, and he was in the military. And like I said, like I wasn't going to do another fight, but the first one, it only lasted like 17 seconds, and the girl was not good. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, well, that don't really count. I was like, that's not really a fight, because it wasn't back and forth, and like there wasn't really any pressure. I was like, I want to know if that's what I can handle. So I did another one, and that one went into the second round, and it was much more back and forth. And I got hit in that fight, and like I just had the time of my life. I honestly had so much fun in that fight. I was like, this is a blast. And so I won that fight, and I really was not going to fight again, except that this woman walked into the cage when I was done, and she was like, oh, you think you're so tough? Like, why don't you fight me? And she was the champion of the promotion, you know, of the Alaska Fighting Championship. She was the champion. And I probably would have honestly said no, except there was a bunch of people standing around. We were like in an arena. And I was like, yeah, we could totally fight. Yeah, we're going to fight. And I swear to God, I was just terrified. Like I would not have agreed to it if there had not, like if we had been by ourselves, you know? And so anyway, I trained really hard for that, and I beat her. And I was kind of like, damn, maybe I'm actually kind of good at this. Like I am having a lot of fun, and I really like this. I loved being on a team. I loved the confidence that I was building. I liked being tough. I was like, damn, I'm like 3-0, you know? Like I won all these fights. I feel so badass. Like I feel great. And so anyway, I had met Joe, and we were dating, and he got stationed in Florida. So he was moving out of Alaska, and I was like, well, I'm fucking going with you. And I didn't even really have a plan to keep fighting. I was just like, no, I need to be with Joe. Like I didn't care if I kept fighting. I just wanted to be with him. So I moved down to Florida with him, and there was a coach from Alaska that I really liked, and he had moved to Texas. So I drove from Florida to Texas to get my blue belt from him. I was still a white belt, you know? And so I drove to go get my blue belt from him. And he gave me my blue belt. And that's right around the time Invicta got started. And so they were having shows, and he was like, you need to write to those people. He was like, you really could go somewhere if you wanted. He was like, you need to write to those people. So I wrote to Invicta, and I was like, hey, I'm 3-0, or I was 4-0 at the time. I was like, I'm 4-0. I'm a blue belt. I've won 2 jiu-jitsu tournaments. Like, what do you guys think about signing me? You know? And they did. They offered me a contract, and to me, it was a huge deal because Invicta was the shit at the time. It was the only place for women, you know? There was no female league. And so Invicta signed me, and I did one more fight for Legacy. they Invicta let me have a warm-up fight. And so I fought for Legacy, even though I was signed to Invicta. And it was the first televised women's fight that Legacy had ever had. It was the first female fight they'd ever had on a main card. So I won that by TKO. I was 5-0, and then I went into Invicta and fought in Invicta for about a year.
Oh, that's amazing. When was it that Dana finally brought women's MMA to the UFC? Wasn't it around 2012? It was late in the game.
It was January of 2013, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was around that point in time. So
yeah.
How long after being with Invicta did you make your way over to the UFC?
God, I wasn't with Invicta very long. I remember I fought for Legacy in February. I fought for Invicta in March. And then I fought for Invicta again in July and then again in December. And that was my entire run with them because I won all the fights, including the Invicta championship. And so I was 8-0 with 6 finishes, and I had the Invicta belt. And at this time, the women's division in the UFC had just opened up that year.
Right.
So they'd taken like the first wave of fighters from Invicta. They'd taken like Shayna Baszler, Sarah McMahon. Obviously, like Ronda Rousey was never in Invicta, but they had taken like all these fighters from Invicta, and I was kind of like the second wave that they took over, or something like that. So I asked Invicta to release me because I really wanted to go to the UFC, and I was afraid that if I kept fighting, I was going to lose one, and then the UFC would like never sign me. You know, I was like terrified of it. So I really wanted to be undefeated. And that, like looking back now, I wish that I had gotten more experience in Invicta because that's a tough promotion. The matchups have always been tough in Invicta. It would have been such good experience before going to the UFC.
But I will say that is probably a very astute business decision. You know, running parallel, it sounds like your work ethic with some good decision making. You really are lucky.
Yeah, I am really lucky, but I do work really hard, and like God blessed me with a very strong work ethic, I think, you know, and I've always believed a lot in hard work, and like it's always paid off for me. And so I really don't think that like I was the most talented athlete. I'm definitely not the most talented athlete. And I did start the sport really late. And I think that the reason that I made it so far is like number one, because of my work ethic. 100% it's because of my work ethic. And then 2, a lot of it's just being in the right place at the right time, which is pretty lucky, you know, but it's like when you work hard, the harder you work, the more often you're going to find yourself in the right place at the right time, you know?
You had a quote after your last fight that has stuck with me like none other. And that quote was, "My adult life has been a dream. Sometimes I have to pay for that dream." I think about that in many different avenues of life. And I think that's a very all-encompassing thing, right?
I mean, yeah, like when I said that, what I meant was like sometimes you pay the price, you know, like I have lived a dream of a life. It's been amazing. Like I accidentally stumbled into being a professional athlete for the entirety of my 30s. Like the prime of my adulthood has been spent as basically one big fucking party. And like I couldn't be more grateful, you know. It has been hard, but it's been really, really fun. And I've gotten to experience like more than I deserve. Honestly, there's so many athletes out there that train their entire fucking lives from the time they're like kids. And they don't get to do like a lot of the stuff that I've gotten to do. And they don't make it as far as I've made it. And something about that just seems terribly unfair to me, you know?
Right.
And so it really is, you know, there's so many like people that would just love to do what I've done and be where I've been. And they work hard to get there. And then like, for whatever reason, just like fate has it that they don't ever get to where they want to go. And I feel like I literally like stumbled into it almost by fucking accident. And so sometimes, you know, you pay the price. It's like sometimes you're going to end up fighting somebody like Jessica Andrade and you're not going to have a good performance that night, you know, for whatever reason. And that's the price you pay to have such an awesome life sometimes.
What did you make of some of the critique of that fight afterwards and the aftermath of it?
Oh, you mean like people saying it should have been stopped or
yes, that bullshit.
Honestly, it's like people get jacked up about stuff. I was fine. I was just as beat up or more beat up after I fought Andrea Lee in Houston. Yeah. I looked really bad and like, you know, my whole face was swollen and like, nobody was fucking concerned then about any kind of damage. Like nobody was, you know? And so to kind of go through, I think it's just because it was so unanswered. Like I really froze up in that fight. And yeah, this is not the sport you can afford to freeze up in. You just cannot, you end up getting 30-25 a couple times down in Brazil. It's not a good time, But I don't know. People are going to say what they're going to say. And like Ronda Rousey said it best once. She said that people's memories are as long as their Twitter timelines. And I found that to be true. And not only that, but it's like if I let other people decide for me how I'm going to feel about myself, then my life would be meaningless.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And there's a lot to be said about the durability that you put on display in that fight. It was what it was, but I don't think it changes anything.
My career as a whole has been pretty good. And like, there's been some epic fuck ups, but it's fine. Like, not that it's fine. We never want to have epic fuck ups, but it's like I said, sometimes that is the price you're going to pay. You're going to miss the game winning shot. You're going to fucking freeze up during a really important fight. You're going to forget the words to the Star Spangled Banner, like whatever it is, sometimes nightmares like that happen, but I don't think that it takes away from the entirety of my career. And it certainly hasn't taken away from my experience, like the last decade of being a fighter, so.
Absolutely. You look at your last handful of fights, there's only 2 losses in there. And I don't know. I go back to the September 2021 fight. You were under a little bit of duress in that fight camp leading up to that, weren't you?
Yeah. That makes me so sad. It's like MMA.
It's not fair sometimes.
It just makes me so sad because it's like that fight didn't have to take place on that day. It really didn't. It didn't have to be like that. And like, I think as any coach in the game knows that fighters are going to try to fight kind of no matter what. And for a coach to manipulate a fighter and to deliberately hurt an athlete is fucking insane. I think it should be a lot more punishable than it is, Yeah. And it just makes me really sad. Like, but I'm glad that the world knows about it. I'm glad that like people know who that guy is. They know what he did. And, it makes me sad. That's the only time in my career that I was ever finished. I don't think that had to happen, certainly, but
right.
It also prevented me from really like learning things that I could have learned, because when I look at that fight, it's like, man, I was sick when I went into that fight. I never should have fought that night. If I don't do that again, then the fight won't go like that. And it's like, I really probably could have taken more from that fight if that big glaring fucking problem hadn't been in the way, blinding everybody, I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does.
Just, looking back after this last fight with Andrade, I can really look back and like be like, okay, here's where I went wrong. Here's where I went wrong. I did this wrong. We need to improve on this. And it makes it easy to look back on how you can improve, but when you have a situation like what happened in that Shevchenko fight, it makes it really hard to learn from it because some stuff went wrong, like deliberately, like somebody on the team was fucking drilling holes in the boat while everybody's trying to row it, And so you can't really assess like what the problem with the boat is when you've got one guy in there that's trying to sink it,
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about how some of these perspectives have changed and some of the things that you've changed. You're training in Colorado now. You're training with some of the Elevation Fight Team folks. How's that experience been for you?
Oh, I love it. I love training with the women especially because I don't get to train with a lot of women out here. And there's like a whole stable of badass women out there. And then like we were just talking about, this like one of the things I fucked up was that there's a lot of really good guys to train out there with as well. And I probably should have invested more time into that in my last fight camp. And I was just so excited to train with so many good women and like have so many good female relationships in the MMA space and like enjoy my training with other females and we get each other and we're buddies and all that shit. That, I really I wasn't as disciplined with my sparring partners, I think, as I needed to be. And so anyway, like I said, like we can learn from it and take that. But the relationships that I've formed with the women in Colorado is like invaluable to me. It's second to none. And it really picked me up after that fight with Valentina. I was kind of in a bad place and like meeting all those girls and training with them really picked me up. And it did something for me that I don't know if I would have gotten it anywhere else.
Yes, I love all of those people. Like, they are some of my most favorite people on the planet. I've had Claire on the show. I've had Miranda on the show. I'm going to have JJ on in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the people that you're running with, and they are phenomenal. Funny story. Back July 8th, 2022, I was at high altitude, your last day of camp. And I was just hanging out, just watching everybody. I made the trip to Denver. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I made the trip to Denver and, just visiting friends and such. And I was like, oh shit, there's Lauren Murphy. And I didn't get a chance to introduce myself to you because everything was going on. It was your last day of camp right before the Miesha Tate fight.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a pretty cool vibe in there, man. It's a really cool vibe. And yeah, it was a cool vibe even for this last camp too. Like just having so many good bodies in there, so many good women and just positive vibes. Neil Magny was getting ready to go down to Brazil. Like it was all, yeah, I think that's super necessary in a fight camp. The sport is hard enough. You have to enjoy your training and you have to enjoy the people that you're with,
It's a really interesting room and I absolutely love it. Are you able to speak about anything that could be in the works?
Yeah, because there ain't shit in the works right now.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
So yeah, we could talk about all you want, but honestly, like right now, I'm trying to open a business out here called Deep End Fitness, and so we're working on that in Houston. Joe's opening up like 2 jiu-jitsu schools out here. So we kind of got a lot going on, and for sure I want to get this business going before I fight again. So it's like we got to start thinking about what we're going to be doing after fighting. I'm going to be 40 this year, and it just seemed like this was such a good opportunity to really invest my time and energy in something that I can continue to do, like when I can't continue to fight.
So let's talk about the concept of Deep End Fitness, because as I said before we started recording, I was cruising your Instagram and I ended up going to the Deep End Fitness Instagram profile. It's a pretty damn interesting concept. So tell us a little bit about it.
It's amazing. It's a program that trains your mind and your body, and it increases performance and confidence in and out of the water. So it's a really amazing program. It's really good for anybody that's in like a high pressure, high performance kind of job. So professional athletes, obviously, high pressure, high performance, but we're also talking like first responders, EMTs, the law enforcement community, teachers, who else? Like movie stars, famous people, just anybody that's, in a high pressure, high performance type position. And then obviously it's going to give benefits to like the general public too, like, your, I don't know, regular accountant or somebody that wants to come in and wants to, just like they do with jiu-jitsu, they want to forget about their shit for a while. They want to participate in something that's fun, something that challenges them. Anyway, so it's a really great program. It's done in the pool. We do a lot of workouts in the pool, a lot of different exercises. And so what ends up happening is you're training your mind and your body to be more resilient. And so we do different things, carrying weights underwater, doing like Olympic lifts underwater, a lot of breath holds, different types of swims. We do like, carrying bricks across the water, pushing bricks across the bottom of the pool, things like that. And as you get stronger and more, adapt more to it, then your tolerance for CO2 goes way, way up. And so your ability to handle stress also goes way, way up.
In some regards, isn't that kind of like duplicating some of the benefits that you get from going out and training in altitude in Colorado?
Yeah, it does replicate some of the benefits. I don't think it's like a 1-for-1 crossover because the air, the air is thin, but it definitely increases CO2 tolerance, which has just incredible effects on everything from like your conditioning to your confidence. Like I said, to your ability to handle like the pressure of a moment. We talk a lot about breath work, how to recover when you're tired, how to move efficiently. These are all things that are like involved in flow states as well, so my hope is that by bringing this program to athletes in Houston, that it increases like not only their cardio, not only their confidence, but it's going to increase their focus and their ability to flow and find a flow state while they compete.
What's one fight that you want that you haven't had yet?
Ooh, Let me think about that for a sec, because for a long time it was Misha Tate. Like if you had asked me this a year ago, I'd be like, oh, I've always wanted to fight Misha Tate. But yeah, that one we did. So let me think about that for a sec.
How sweet was that victory when you got it?
It was awesome. Honestly, that was probably the best performance of my career. And it's to this day, it's the only fight that I've ever had that I was like super, super proud of. Like
Yeah.
Even my other wins and stuff, I always found a way to like not be proud of it, or like would be like, oh, like I didn't do that good, or they weren't that good, or something like that, and kind of talk myself down about it. And this, like that fight with Misha, it was like, nope, nobody can say shit. Like she's a good fighter. She was in shape. Nobody was injured. Like we both came on point. She's, a former champion, and like I did it. I outclassed her, It's the first time I've really walked away from a fight feeling like, God damn, I'm good.
That's amazing.
So it's good. It's good to feel like that, but it also kind of bit me in the ass because I tell you, it made me a little complacent. So like when and like literally, I've just never experienced this before. Like we said, I wasn't an athlete growing up. I didn't have an amateur career. This is the first time I had a fight where I was like, oh, I'm the shit. And so it did. It made me a little bit lazier, and it made me a little complacent. And I think I fell into some of those traps because I wasn't looking for them. And now I know. Now I know that a good win has that effect on people. I'll know next time if you're like, man, don't be such a lazy piece of shit after a good win, and maybe you'll come back look even better the next time.
Do you feel like you've always been this self-aware before you were a fighter, or is this something that you've developed over time?
I developed it over time. When I was younger, I was a bad alcoholic and a drug addict, and I went to a 12-step program for a really long time. And a lot of people in my family are involved in 12-step programs. And a big part of like a 12-step program is being pretty self-aware.
Right.
They do a lot of like looking inward and analyzing themselves and clearing up their side of the street, trying to do no harm, trying to apologize when you do wrong. It's a pretty self-deprecating program, and I learned that when I was really young. And so I think that's just always kind of stuck with me. But working with Carrington Banks has also made me a lot more like aware of myself, and he's like, I really liked working with Banks. I still like working with Banks for that exact reason.
Yes. So do you have that one fight? Do you have that in your head now?
So I think like I'd like to rematch JoJo. That I think would be a fun fight. If I could pick any fight, if it was like no limits, no holds barred, I would obviously fight for the championship again. So
yes,
that would be like, if it was like you could have any fantasy fight you wanted, I would say, okay, I want to fight for the UFC championship again.
Yeah. Would you want to run it back with Andrade?
We could. I don't think anybody's interested in seeing it. Like that's really the thing, is it's like, it's not like it was a fucking back and forth deal, So I do think that like I froze up and I just kind of choked in the moment, and that sucks. I had a really good opportunity to like show the world who I am, and kind of let the moment take me over instead of me seizing the moment. But it's like I said, like it just sometimes that happens at a high level, and you have to look at why, and you have to go fix it. But it's not the end of the world, So no, the fight with Andrade, I think, is a done and gone thing, and you just got to learn what you can from it and try to apply those lessons to the next one,
Absolutely. I got to tell you, I have like chuckled more having this conversation with you than I have with any other fighter I've had on my show. I love how real and how raw you are. It is amazing. And I think that is a testament to who you are as a fighter too. And it's why you're also one of my most favorite fighters.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely gotten me into trouble more than a few times.
Oh, girl.
But I do. I just try to keep it real. It's much easier that way, I think.
That's what I was just going to say. Real recognizes real.
Yeah. Gods recognize gods.
That's amazing. So given all the shit you've dealt with in your life, your fighting career, your string of luck, everything that you're doing, this is the question I ask in every single episode of my show, just because I love to hear people's perspectives. What is your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today.
Change yourself, baby. You got to change yourself before you can change anything else. So that's it.
I love it. I love it. And I cannot wait to see what's next for you. Thanks for doing the show. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. I hope so, too. Thank you for having me on, Mike. This was a blast.
The world's a better place with you in it, Lauren.
Thank you.
Seriously, running that episode back was so much fun to listen to while I was editing it. I want to send a big thank you to Lauren Murphy for being on the show today. She's a lot of fun. She's a hell of a good fighter. If you haven't paid attention to her career before, you need to educate yourself on your MMA history and pay attention to what's coming next. Give her a follow on Instagram. She is at Lauren Murphy MMA. And while you're following people on social media platforms, make sure you give Caught on the Mic a follow on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. You can also visit me at www.caughtonthemic.com. Send any email questions, guest requests, or anything of the like to caughtonthemic@gmail.com. I will try and respond as quickly as I can. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.